depending where you are, and welcome to today's webinar, which is entitled Business and Deployment Issues for Carrier Wi-Fi. I'm Caroline Gabriel. I'm the Research Director at Maravedis-Rethink and your moderator for today's session. At Maravedis-Rethink, our research and consulting services are focused entirely on carrier strategies and infrastructure investments for mobile broadband, and we're increasingly finding that carrier class Wi-Fi is taking a critical role in these areas. Mobile operators are interested in Wi-Fi to offload data from their cellular networks and expand their coverage. Wireline carriers see Wi-Fi as a strong way to add wireless elements to their services even without a cellular license. All of this is creating opportunities for owners of high-quality hotspots and locations. Although the technologies and standards are developing rapidly, there are still many issues around the practicalities of deployment and the business case. We hope to start to address some of those questions today with our speakers. But first I would like to run through a couple of housekeeping slides. I beg your pardon. Sorry about that. Hopefully you can see my screen. Just very quickly, one is the webinar interface, which is fairly self-explanatory. There's a grab tab to open and close the control panel so that you can see the slides in full. But most importantly, you can submit questions and review answers. So please remember to type your question at any time through the presentations and click send. That will submit it to us, and we will try to answer as many as possible of the questions at the end of the session. Some commonly asked questions. Can I obtain the slides? Yes, attendees will receive an email after the webinar with a link to a PDF version of what's presented today. The event is also being recorded, and you'll be sent a link to watch that recorded webcast within the next 2 business days. For any more information about what we discussed today or to talk about our consulting services, please go to our website, or our full contact details will be available also at the end of the session. Now on to our speakers today, and then we'll run a few short polls before we go on to the main presentations of the day. I'm delighted to welcome 2 of our most eminent associates in the field of carrier Wi-Fi to address some of the issues that we're outlining today. Claus Hetting is the head of Hetting Consulting, senior advisor to Maravedis-Rethink, and a well-known expert in many technologies, particularly carrier Wi-Fi. Magnus Johansson has many years of experience at the cutting edge of deploying telecoms networks, and he's now COO of Digital Way and also a senior advisor to Maravedis-Rethink. Before we hear from our 2 speakers, we'd like to know a little bit more about you, the audience, and your thoughts about Wi-Fi. So we'd like to run 3 short polls and appreciate your votes. The first 2 will be about demographics, and the third about Wi-Fi monetization. Adelaide,
yes, so we launched the first poll and got responses so far. So we have a mix of different people in the audience, including mobile operators, fixed and Wi-Fi operators. There's also a very strong interest from vendors and the other category, which probably includes consultants, analysts, press, media. I will now push the second poll to better understand which area of work you're involved in, and please take a few seconds to answer the category that corresponds to your role. And we have still some responses coming in here.
Seem to be having quite a focus on the technical product management side, so it'll always be challenging for the Q&A, I'm sure. But also quite a lot of people from the business side, strategy, sales and marketing.
Yeah, so we have a majority here involved in technical R&D and product management, followed by sales and marketing, and also equally are people involved in business strategy here. So I think that based on the demographics of the audience here, I think they will enjoy the content of today's webinar. So now, before moving to Claus' presentation, I would like to ask you what is, in your opinion, the #1 way of monetizing carrier Wi-Fi? I think that's kind of central to everything that's discussed around deploying Wi-Fi, either to save on the cost of delivering 3G or to be a source of revenues by itself. So let's see here what people think. Give it a few more seconds for more people to vote. And we'll be closing the poll here and sharing the results. So it seems that the majority believes that all of the above is the correct response here, where different avenues can be explored to monetize Wi-Fi.
Quite a high interest in Wi-Fi offload as well, which I guess is understandable, and I know Claus is a particular expert on that, so this all seems very relevant.
Okay, so
thanks for that. And we'd now just like to pass on to our first speaker of the day, Claus Hetting. Just to recap, he's the head of Hetting Consulting, a specialist in carrier Wi-Fi and business models, and a senior advisor to Maravedis-Rethink. Thank you, Claus.
Yeah, thanks very much, Caroline, for the introduction, and Adlan as well. Great to be here. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I think that, well, there was actually a really interesting poll, and I think I may be preaching to the converted here, but let me go deeper into my presentation. You can see if you still agree with me. I actually believe that, well, I want to do two things. Let me start by saying I want to do two things. I want to convince you of the opportunity represented by carrier Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi offload. And then I also want to convince you of the next steps that you should take, which involves strategy and business model. And I'll get to that in the end. I usually say that Wi-Fi offload in and of itself is a billion-dollar opportunity. If you look at the industry as a whole, it might actually be a billion-dollar opportunity for individual markets around the globe. But the bottom line is, I've worked on this for a couple of years, and the more I work on it, the more I recognize what a huge opportunity it is. And I'm going to show you in the next few slides my view on this. So first of all, why is seamless Wi-Fi offload a mass market business opportunity? Mass market is obviously the really important words here. And the main reason for it is because you can now offer seamless carrier-grade Wi-Fi services to the preferred mass market device, which is basically, well, this thing, right? The SIM-enabled smartphone. And you can do that at a wholesale level or at a retail level, and all of these options are possible, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that later. But the issue is, essentially, when we look at the market today, 3/4 of the traffic demand from smartphones is actually satisfied by Wi-Fi, so that it's actually 3-to-1. If you look at the mobile data proportion of it, the red part is actually a very small part. And Wi-Fi is by far the biggest share. And you would think that this is a business opportunity, and I can guarantee you that it is. Now, the question, of course, is how you monetize this, and I'm going to get into that. But the business opportunity is absolutely certainly there. And if you look at the red and the blue as well, if you look at which part of this traffic is growing faster, the blue part is actually growing much faster than the red part. And so if I were a mobile operator, I would be concerned about that, because on the relative scale, Wi-Fi is certainly growing faster than mobile, right? And what's more, that there's a lot of research out there. I know everything points to that users actually prefer Wi-Fi over cellular, more than 50%. And this concept of seamlessness is incredibly important, because we now have all the technologies in place to offer seamlessness across mobile and Wi-Fi, right? So why is carrier Wi-Fi the right choice? Well, let's go through the bad news, if you like. If you look at the mobile world right now, there's actually quite low growth in a lot of mature, so in the mature markets, right, in declining ARPUs and revenues for most MNOs. And a lot of the, if you like, the Wi-Fi, the traffic is actually offloaded to unmonetized Wi-Fi, and this is obviously an issue that we want to change, right, which is part and parcel of the business case that I'm presenting to you. So another major problem is that licensed spectrum is becoming increasingly scarce, and that if you want to address this high demand for data traffic, high-capacity networks in the mobile area are super capex intensive. So even when we talk about small cells and these HetNet solutions and so forth, they tend to be super capex intensive. If we compare that to Wi-Fi offload, there's a lot of good news. First of all, seamless carrier Wi-Fi technology is here today. That means that all the pieces of the technology puzzle is actually available, including all the things that you need on the network side, the core networks, the radio networks, on the device side, and so on and so forth. So you can actually implement it technically today. The other side of the story, of course, is that carrier Wi-Fi networks, in terms of cost, is less than half the mobile network cost. There's another very important part of the story, is that a lot of venues and areas are still underserved by wireless services. So I'm talking about, well, for example, here in my country, there's a lot of shopping centers, there's a lot of stadiums, there's a lot of entertainment venues of different kinds that I consider the low-hanging fruit for Wi-Fi, carrier Wi-Fi services, and they're typically underserved. And you can, well, with carrier Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi offload, you have the opportunity to monetize this. So in conclusion, it is certainly a real business opportunity, and part of the reason for this business opportunity is the concept of seamlessness. And why is seamlessness important? So in traditional Wi-Fi networks, you have required user interaction on the device. Now with seamlessness, there's zero user interaction, right? Whether it's a SIM-based device or a non-SIM-based device. So basically, you can walk into a venue and be connected over your SIM card to authenticated on your SIM card to a Wi-Fi service. There's no captive portal, there's no credit cards, no logon, no passwords. All that has been sorted so that it's seamless in that sense. It's a cellular-like user experience. So this means that, well, you essentially get the same service as you would roaming on your cellular phone, right? You can connect immediately and automatically to available Wi-Fi networks. You can hand over seamlessly from mobile to Wi-Fi networks with Hotspot 2.0, sorry. And you can specifically hand over between mobile and Wi-Fi networks using a function called ANDSF. All this stuff is in place. And even more importantly, from realizing a business case point of view, you can pay conveniently via your cable company or your mobile services bill as you would normally do. So that's a super, super important part of the equation. And there's a lot of industry organizations behind these technical standards that are coming out, including the 3GPP, Wi-Fi Alliance, GSMA, and so on, Wireless Broadband Alliance. So there's a tremendous impetus behind all the industry bodies and the industry as a whole to make Wi-Fi and mobile come together. So if we go back to the slide, well, the slide with the 3 gigabytes and the 1 gigabyte, so let's have a look at where are the 3 gigabytes of Wi-Fi traffic actually coming from, and how can we somehow access them in the business case. So if you look at something like this, which is the traffic profile across a day of Wi-Fi traffic and mobile traffic, then there's basically 3 different areas that you can look at. First of all, there's a lot of Wi-Fi also going on at the office, or a lot of Wi-Fi usage, I should say, going on at the office. That's pretty much taken care of by enterprise systems, so they're kind of off bounds as far as monetization is concerned. There are opportunities to monetize the part of the Wi-Fi network traffic that goes on in the home through using the home spot concept, which a lot of cable cos around the world are adopting, making them available for public access. And in terms of the rest, well, excuse me, there are a number of, as I mentioned already, there's a great number of high-density places of congregation, shopping, transport, many other venues that really offer opportunities to serve subscribers with Wi-Fi, carrier Wi-Fi, and opportunities for new carrier build, and of course, as a consequence of that, opportunity for wholesale Wi-Fi capacity sales to MNOs, which is the Wi-Fi offload monetization opportunity. So what do consumers really want? And this is an important slide in that I want to demonstrate here what you actually get with Wi-Fi, because Wi-Fi is not, is sometimes perceived as a sort of a poor version of wireless, but it's actually developed tremendously over the last few years. So consumers want high-speed wireless connectivity, and the solution actually is either 802.11n or 802.11ac, which can deliver 30 megabytes per second per user as a typical service level on many of the devices that are coming out today. So this is certainly satisfied by Wi-Fi. You can offer services for all wireless devices, including SIM and non-SIM, because you can actually extend your authentication over the SIM of smartphones to non-SIM devices. The solutions for this actually exist, so you can address the entire market, not just smartphones with SIMs, but also a growing base of non-SIM devices. The seamlessness experience we talked about, and the technologies are in place to do this, both hotspot 2.0 SIM authentication and where needed, connectivity clients. There's some operators that like to use these, and right now it's becoming increasingly popular to actually have a client in the device that manages this connectivity. So you can offer, well, what do users want? They want indoor services at home, office, and everywhere else, right? And so the solution to that is, again, carrier Wi-Fi and public access home spots. The low cost can be created because a carrier Wi-Fi is much less costly than LTE. It's actually at least 50% cheaper, if not more, in terms of deployment and the whole total cost of ownership and so on. So there's tremendous cost benefits to mobile operators, and as a consequence, it's possible to deliver low-cost services at a very high quality. You can create a wide service footprint to serve your customers. So you, either by building, aggregating, or partnering with MNOs, cable cos, and aggregators, all of the above are possible when you build your carrier Wi-Fi business case. Okay, so what are the business models? Well, the traditional business model, of course, is direct, seamless, or retail, if you like, retail with services to consumers, and this is based on paid subscription. So this is the if you like, the Boingo model of delivering Wi-Fi, and this has been in existence some time. The new business model is wholesale Wi-Fi offload to anybody really who wants it, but specifically to MNOs and MVNOs, or another group that has been increasingly interested in it, cable companies, wireless internet service providers. And the way that this works is to offer the business case, well, the business model is to offer per gigabyte wholesale capacity where it matters in high density areas. So this is the foundation of the business case that I'm a big supporter of. In terms of the sources of revenue, there's typically, but not always, a fee per connected Wi-Fi offload user per month for the venues where this service is active. There is seamless handover between mobile and Wi-Fi, either through clients and the NDSF, so that the seamlessness is preserved and the user doesn't have to do anything. There is single and multiple Wi-Fi device support via SIM, or meaning SIM or non-SIM devices. So that is also a very important part of the business model. And what I'm a big proponent of in this case is what's called the neutral host network model, where a third party builds a carrier Wi-Fi network and then essentially sells the capacity to anybody really who wants to buy it, and that's typically MNOs, MVNOs, existing wireless internet service providers, and so forth. So I want to tell you a little bit about why I think mobile services alone will never be enough, and why I think that we're on the verge of, at least over the next 2-3 years, on the verge of a breakthrough as far as Wi-Fi offload and carrier Wi-Fi is concerned. And it has to do with capacity and cost. Now, for example, if you were to serve 1,000 mobile users, smartphone users in an airport, or it can also be a mall or somewhere else, and you would want to build a network in support of this, then you've essentially got two options. You can build it, if you're a mobile operator, you can build it with picocells, and for that it would probably cost you about $170,000 in this model. Those are the assumptions, or you can build it with Wi-Fi. And the point is that if you build it with Wi-Fi, and you can go through this, the numbers here if you want later when you get the presentation. But the point is, if you build it with Wi-Fi, not only do you get a CapEx savings of about 40% in this case, but you also get a tremendous capacity gain. It's the nature of carrier Wi-Fi networks that because of the high density of access points that you need to deploy, you will automatically, if you like, in your deployment get a tremendous amount of capacity, which means that you will be deploying a network, a Wi-Fi network that will serve your subscribers many, many years into the future, while if you build it with picocells and small cells, you're going to have to come back a couple of years later and install more and then spend more money and all of that. So this is a big reason why I think that we're on the verge of seeing big investments into carrier Wi-Fi, and that these investments have to happen over the next couple of years. And the opportunity is really there for somebody like yourselves, to start work on this. So if you're interested in this, where should you begin? Well, in my view, there's really only one way. You need to build a strategy and you need to build a business case, right? And although all the technology is there, of course, you do need to put it together in the right way, and there's a great deal of options. Wi-Fi offload is complicated from this point of view, not that the various solutions don't work, but from the point of view there's a lot of different things that you can do to build a winning strategy, and that'll depend on your market conditions and technical conditions and so on and so forth. So the only way that I know of, and I've been working in this industry for more than 15 years, and I've been working on business models for an equivalent amount of time, and the only way that I know of actually building a strategy and a business case is to do a business case model that takes care of everything that you need to think about in that process and gives you concrete results in terms of how much money you're going to make at the end of the day over the course of this project and so on and so forth. And to that end, I've developed the Wi-Fi BCM 2.0, which is a carrier Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi offload business case model, which takes you through all the steps required to evaluate your business case in money terms, right? So what does it do? Well, first of all, it's a complete business case which does end-to-end economic modeling, right? And you can model services, data usage, device and network technology, revenues, network builds. Of course, you get the financial indicators, you work out what your CapEx and OpEx is, and so on. And in the end, what you will get is a precise valuation of your carrier Wi-Fi business opportunity. Now, I've gone through great lengths here to include a great deal of options in what services and what strategy you want to pursue, and all of this is implemented in the model. So I wouldn't say you can not do it by yourself, but you can certainly make a great deal of progress on your strategy work through this model. So that is, I think, the way forward for people that recognize this opportunity. And as far as I know, there are no other models of this type available on the market today, certainly not for public use by service providers and so on and so forth. All right, so the last thing I want to ask you is I've built a community on LinkedIn that supports the whole seamless Wi-Fi offload concept, where I'm sharing a lot of information. So please, after this webinar, go to LinkedIn and search for seamless Wi-Fi offload. Join the LinkedIn group where I'm sharing information about this, and join the debate. It's been really successful so far, so I hope you want to be a part of that. And I didn't show the actual model, and that's kind of on purpose because I've not done the official launch yet. But of course, I can show you individually, and you have to contact Adlan for that. Individually, I can go through the model with people for whomever is interested in that. And I think Adlan, I don't know if I spent my full 15 minutes, but that was what I had to say for now.
That's great, Klaus. Thank you so much. It was really interesting. I'm going to keep all the questions till the end after all the speakers so that we can hopefully get a little debate going between yourself and Magnus. So at this point, I'd like to hand over to Magnus Johansson, who's Chief Operating Officer of Digital Way and Senior Advisor to Maravedis-Rethink.
Okay, thank you very much, Caroline, Klaus. Great presentation. I think it will fit fairly well into my presentation. So what you see on the screen is the brand of an actual deployment that is in full swing in Lima, Peru. That is an independent Wi-Fi operator with the brand name of WeGo. And what is WeGo? WeGo is free of weight, complications, or obstacles. And the company that runs this is Digital Way, and I'm their COO. And I have been in the business, as Adeline and Caroline said, in many different ways. I've done WiMAX, I have done 3G, I've done some 4G, and now I'm doing Wi-Fi. And I think the Wi-Fi and where and why go Wi-Fi? I think Wi-Fi have almost come full circle from being, some novelty 10 plus years ago to becoming so much hype to now, I think, being reality. And there is business models and cases of now being an independent operator actually works. And for me, first of all, it's just to say, users, they have Wi-Fi devices and they expect free or almost free Wi-Fi when they get to Wi-Fi, because they pay enough for their mobile plans. And especially in South America and the developed markets, the cost of 3G is very high, and we call it quality of Wi-Fi, that is the public Wi-Fi that is free, is very low. So there is definitely an opportunity to go forward. Let me see here. There. So WeGo, what is the vision of this company, and why did we decide to go as someone independent, not the mobile operator, only focusing on Wi-Fi? Well, our market positioning is such that the mobile operators today in Peru, they are offering Wi-Fi, but they are offering it only to their own operators' postpaid smartphones. And if you break that down, that becomes approximately perhaps 10% of all the Wi-Fi devices that are in the market. All the tablets, all the game consoles, everything that's being sold, and especially on tablets, almost 98% are sold without a mobile plan. So that becomes not a good value proposition if you are a commercial center, if you are a stadium, if you are a municipality, and the mobile operators tries to sell you the vision of providing access to only 10% of your community. That doesn't make sense. Then on the other hand, you have if you call it the unmanaged multiple Wi-Fi networks, that are all the public hotspots that are provided independently by small coffee shops, restaurants, etc. And for them, it's something that they feel they must have, but they want to pay as little as possible for it. And what happens is that they buy a consumer-grade ADSL connection, they put a consumer-grade Wi-Fi access point in front of it, and then they say it's free. And if you're alone in the network sitting there, it might be good, but as soon as you have 2, 3, or 4 people, that experience becomes very bad. So there is this opportunity of providing a managed Wi-Fi network using carrier-grade equipment that is centralized managed, So you have control over channels, you have control over speeds, etc., etc. And you can create a consistent experience across the places where people trying to access this network. And what you will see too with Wi-Fi is that if you have good Wi-Fi, people's behaviors change. We did, before we pulled the trigger on financing and building this network out, we did 2 tests. One was a very large mall with only one access point with a 2 megabit per second backhaul. So although it had over 12,000 unique visitors to this one access point on a monthly basis, they downloaded about 100 gigs per month, but all they did was Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, all the things that you might do on your 3G. There was no real video or anything. But on a smaller mall, we installed, I think it was 12 APs, carrier grade APs, with a 100 megabits per second backhaul. And although there was fewer people using, you can see that download was on a factor of 10, a terabyte per month. And there, all of a sudden, everybody was looking on YouTube and video. So one important thing that Wi-Fi can do, and if you optimize it right, is to support video very well. So the vision of WiGo here in Peru is to be the preferred access network when you are away from home, because you are on Wi-Fi when you're home, and when you get out, maybe when you're in transit, you're on 3G. But as soon as you sit down and you want access, you're looking for that Wi-Fi. And usually it's a hit or a miss. But if you have a consistent experience where people, I call it work, play, then you have an opportunity to grab that market. And what do you need to do to really compete as an independent Wi-Fi? You need to create what they call your own blue ocean. It is this concept of, instead of going directly where everybody else is and compete head-to-head, try to create your own ocean that you swim in, and try to protect it by creating a temporary monopoly. Monopoly perhaps is a bad word, but it is the idea of making the barrier of entry very hard. And doing that, what we did was to go and negotiate contracts, first of all with the electricity companies that owns the lampposts, and get a, if you call it a semi-exclusive deal on the lampposts. Then we went to all the key commercial malls. There are about 6 really large malls that have a combined visitor per month of almost the whole population of Lima, that is 9 million on a monthly basis. And then go to key municipalities. There are the business, where the business districts are, where all the we have a very nice, it's called a malecon. It's down by the ocean, where there's a lot of parks, there's a lot of tourists, there's again a lot of congregational people. And that is the key of deploying, is that you need to look at a business model that not supports only, say, directly to consumer. And I think Claus hit on the nail on the head with this, is to say, if you're going to do this, you need to give what the customer expects. They expect free. There are some people that would like to have a premium experience. That might be 5, 3, maybe as high as 10% over time, but more than 90% of your users would like to get this offer for free as their end user experience. They know that there is no free lunch, that it needs to be paid by someone, and that could be sponsored through advertising, that could be through wholesale, where where the mobile operator actually pays for it and bundles it with its data plans. And to support this is kind of a busy slide, but it's just to say this is a high level of the network in Lima and how it's built, is that you need to have your APs and you need to backhaul them. And the way that we have gone by it is that everything actually is wireless, because the fiber infrastructure is owned by the mobile operators. To build out fiber in Lima is very hard because of it's hard to get the permits to dig up or hang the strains. So it's wireless from the access, meaning the AP, and then we have a point-to-multipoint backhaul up to the rooftop, where we have a point-to-point wireless microwave in licensed spectrum. And then we have, between our data centers, we have dark fiber for redundancy, and then we have two separate tier 1 internet providers. And something to point out is that to support this multiple business model, you have to have a very flexible and interesting core that can support this. And it starts really with your OSS BSS, that is your policy control, your billing control, and your access control. And to have also a control of the AP that is centralized, so that the AP is focusing on being able to support a lot of customers, but all the control of the user, the end user, is done through policy. It's done through using DPI, so that you can control I call it the 1% that are the super abusive customers, and the 10% that are abusive customers. Those 11%, and I have seen this, and I think the audience can agree, I've seen in all different deployments I've done, the 1% uses up about 20% of your capacity, and the other 10% can use up as much as 40 to 60%. So you end up with 80% is used up by the 20, and it should be the opposite. So if you just manage to either restrict or shape the traffic of those 1% and 10%, you will have a very good experience. So what is the market opportunity? I talked a little about this, right? And in Lima, there is 10 million people living. And the malls that are the big malls have almost 9.5 million visitors per month. The big municipalities and the areas of coverage has about 3 million visitors per month. And the hangouts, meaning the restaurants, the fast food, all of these pubs, etc., have visitors of almost 2 million. So these are not unique visitors, because that is, in this model, is not important. The important is how many unique visitors and how many of those carries a smartphone, and how many of those wants to connect to Wi-Fi, and how many times do they connect to Wi-Fi, because that creates a potential. We will talk about the advertising model. It creates a view, and that means that in this scenario, with the assumptions, you have an opportunity to show 3.6 million ad views to these visitors. So how did we do it, and how are we going about it? Well, as I have said, you have to start out almost like a Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. First, you have to have your, if you call it location, you have to have where people want to go and where they want to do. And that is to deploy only where you have the highest concentration of your target audience. And that is back to where I think Claus was talking about that as well. It is malls, it is hotels, it is train station, public transit, it is sports arenas, it is where the lunch crowd goes and hang out. It's all of those areas, universities, etc. Then you need to get customer on your network, and with as little barrier of entry as possible. And that is to say, yes, we have free access, but there is no free lunch. You need to do some sort of registration, because with the registration in a transparent way, you get customer information on an aggregated way. And that makes that you can then monetize your users by offering them offering advertisers a way of reaching target groups in a very interesting way that I will talk a little more about later in the presentation. Because when you have all of this, you now have an opportunity to offer these location-based services and customer insights. And I will talk a little more about that. So when you build your network, is it coverage or capacity? It's really not. It's more concurrency. When you have these very dense populations, it's not about how much capacity you have on the back end. It is how many users can you support at the same time. Because even though you're using tablets or smartphone, the amount of data pushed through those devices are not as much. So you're not going to run out of backhaul, but you're going to run out of capacity in the access point if you do not use carrier grade and smart deployments. Claus was talking about what is the cost advantage. By using Wi-Fi in these dense situations, you support much more capacity than what femtocells and small cells from LTE and others can support per square meter, and the cost is a fraction. And then you have to think about optimizing your network to support video effectively, because that is, as based upon the earlier slide that I showed, that when people have good Wi-Fi, it's all about video. It's all about streaming, and it's all about YouTube. And Netflix is at this point, a distant second in this market, but someone that is growing very fast. So with the monetization of your freemium, and here is the key of what we have done here in Peru, is that we have done a social media integration. So with any social media profile that you have, will it be Facebook, Google+, Yahoo, Twitter, whatever social, I think we support up to 15 different social media profiles. You click on that and you are connected. And on top of that, we are using location-aware APs. This is commands the technical people in the audience knows about option 82. And that information, you can know the location of the AP, exactly if it is in a mall, outside a restaurant, inside a restaurant, in a park, and based upon that location, you can then derive information and say if you want to do hyper-local advertising or hyper-local information or hyper-local location-based services. And then what we have done is that we integrate this with an advertising platform to be able to offer targeted advertising in the shape of video or in the shape of banner ads and etc. And I will show how that process works a little later. And at the same time, we have also built our core to be extremely flexible, so that by building out in areas of high concentration and creating our blue ocean, we are creating we call it a credible threat or an opportunity to be partners with mobile operators. And the idea is that the platform supports to be integrated into the mobile core and allow for seamless and secure SIM authentication. So in the end, if the mobile operator does not want to lose control of their user and want to make the experience seamless as they walk from the mobile network into the Wi-Fi network as a bundle of their mobile service, we can offer that. One of the things to perhaps look at and say, you know, when you put all these pieces together, you know, what should you do yourself and what should you perhaps outsource? And this is a very simple diagram, but there is much more behind it. But I wanted to kind of say what is core to your business and what you want to control, that you insource. Things that are not perhaps core or not your speciality, you try to outsource or partner on. And really when everything comes to the design and selection of where to put the APs, of course you should be in control of that. But the installation, the site hunting, the co-location, there's integrators, there's tower management companies, there's site hunting companies that are much better than that, than for you to hire people on full-time or even part-time to do it. As the core comes, it's the same thing. For us, it is to partner with the right people to do the design, configuration, and optimization, and control the NOC, the monitoring, the first and second level support, and for third level support, we feel that we can outsource that as well. And on internet, of course, it's to choose tier 1 providers because you are offering a carrier grade solution, so you don't want to go cheap on the internet. That is your key differentiator. Then I'm going to touch a little on cloud services. I mean, that is where perhaps a lot of the future is happening. And for us, it is that these services as software or other things, for us, the advertising platform, the social media platform, and for virtualization of if you call it systems that are very dependent on demand, that needs to be able to grow very quickly and that are not high in capacity, like signaling and other things, we have put in the cloud as well. So that if and when the demand grows rapidly, we can grow on a need-to-be basis versus having to stock our own data center from the beginning to plan for a very high demand up front. So you're saving in CapEx there. So I will kind of end with showing the process of customer acquisition, where you come to a mall, you will see advertising for the service, you will see the APs. They might not be beautiful, but they are there, so you know where your coverage is, because the important thing is not to overpromise and under-delivering on your coverage. You want to be very specific as to, in this area, when you are inside the mall, you will have a great experience. When you walk outside the mall, not so much. And it really, this is in Spanish, but you connect to the SSID, you get noted to log on. This is on your mobile device or on your, in this, it's just a laptop. And you hit continue to start the process. You can then choose to sign in with a social media, or if you have already an account, to log in with the social media, or use your username and password. And if you don't want that, then you want to register manually, you can do that. But upfront, we're saying, talk to us about, give us your social media information. In Peru, almost 92% of all smartphone users are on Facebook, and the idea of sharing and checking in, etc., is very high. So this, I call it on the personal privacy issue, we have a very clear policy of what we do. We don't use personal information on an individual basis. We're using it on an aggregated basis. Then when you have done that, you get clicked and you get a 15-second, 7 to 15-second video that is, I call it geo-contextual, meaning if you are in this mall and this mall have a certain types of stores, they have things, you will see adverts that are in for stores and events in that mall, and it will be targeted to the group of the user group that you're looking for. It has that if you close this, this is to say you have to watch this. You have to take 15 seconds out of your life to get great free Wi-Fi. If you close this window, the process is actually closed, and you go back to have to click again to go in. So there is a, we call it a guaranteed view to do it. Then the creation of the account, and you get redirected, and this is the second opportunity for monetization. When you get redirected, you can make it into a special, if we call it an advert portal, that is again contextual to the place where you are. So this one you cannot get to this this portal. You cannot get to from the your internet at home. This is specific to the access points in that mall, and with that you can have daily deals, you can have even hourly deals, you can have certain things that this becomes a very interesting page to go to, because you are in the mall to shop. If you want to know if there's 2-for-1 shoes on sale, if there is a good for coffee, whatever it is, you can set this call to action, and you can then very easily see what happened. That the advertiser put that, you can say, look, out of the people that came, this many people clicked, this is how many visitors you had. They can see if they had more visitors than other days, etc., etc. So this gives an opportunity to build upon the monetization. And with that, I think I have used up almost all my time. So I hand over to Adeline.
Thanks ever so much, Magnus. That was really detailed and fascinating. So just going to hand over briefly to Adeline Fellows, the founder and head of customer engagement here at Maravedis-Rethink, to share a little about our services here, and then we'll go to Q&A.
Thank you, Caroline. Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me fine. So nobody introduced me before, but I'm Adeline Fellows, and I'm in charge of customer engagement here. My objective for the next couple of minutes, since we're running out of time and we'd like to leave some time for questions, is to explain where do we fit in this whole picture as Maravedis-Rethink. And many of you know us for our research, especially on the wireless infrastructure. We have a number of ongoing services, including the RAN, both small cells, macro RAN, as well as Wi-Fi. We have in-house specialists in charge of backhaul. We do a lot of work on regulation to the clear spectrum, and then MOSA is our operators database. But today what we're really highlighting are our Wi-Fi consulting services based on the partnerships that we have with both Magnus, who has tremendous real-life field experience to help other operators elsewhere in the world to replicate the model or learn from past mistakes and save a lot of time, money, and headaches. As well as, of course, Claus, who is a Wi-Fi passionate with lots of experience in modeling. And so what we did is put together a consulting services offering, which consists in 3 modules. The first one is business modeling tool based on Claus' work that enables you to capture all of the important variables of the business plan and modelize it to run scenarios and simulations. As well, it's also a way to serve as a guideline through the process. The second module here is the network and vendor selection. It can be quite a daunting task to start from scratch with so many vendors out there that are, claiming to be the best and not sure who to believe. We have gone through the process of actually deploying these vendors and have them compete against each other, and their equipment has been tested on the field. So one thing is, of course, data sheets, and the other thing is how the equipment behaves in the field, as well as the support and all the other important aspects when it comes to deployment. And so we can accompany you through a number of the steps in network and vendor selection. The third module is about business and deployment issues. And so there are many possible business models out there, and we can help you to identify business opportunities in your particular situation and country to see where you can best allocate your resources and go after the best low-hanging fruit, especially if you're competing against mobile operators, or if you're a mobile operator, how to fit in that what is pretty much more of an entrepreneurial spirit into an environment where perhaps there's not so much flexibility in deploying new business models. There are also deployment issues. There are real life situations that you will be confronted with, whether it's putting an AP in a lamppost, all the way to as Magnus indicated, what's the part of the network you want to outsource versus develop in-house, or aspects of deployments in the stadium. And so all of these aspects we can help you with through our consulting services in these three modules. So each module can be purchased separately, and we will first look at your needs, understand your particular situation and requirements, and then propose a solution to those many questions that you may have as you're planning your business. Just a quick introduction of the team here. So we do look at Wi-Fi specifically here in this context, but we also look at it from different perspectives of the traditional RAN. Caroline Gabriel has been covering the RAN for 20 years and is head of our RAN practice too. So everything we do will be in light of other technologies and contexts. We also, as I mentioned, a backhaul analyst who's every vendor out there, and every vendor out there knows him. Esteban Monterus, who also provide specific information on backhaul requirements. If you're interested in contracting our services, you can reach me at the information presented here, and I will be funneling the request to see how we can best help you. So without further ado, I'd like to open up the floor for the Q&A. Caroline?
Great, thanks very much. We've only got a short Q&A time. I know people's time is precious. We've had a lot of questions, and we will try and follow up individually where we can, of course. But I'd like, I think, to bundle, a lot of the questions are on a similar theme, so I think it makes sense to bundle them together into one discussion point that I hope both our speakers will have quite a lot to say about, which is really the issues of Wi-Fi in the age of LTE. We've heard comments from some operators like EE here in the UK that with LTE their usage patterns are changing. Wi-Fi is less necessary for them, and increasingly, can Wi-Fi really deliver that extra quality of experience that LTE is delivering? And also on the cost side, as Wi-Fi becomes more carrier class, does it also become more expensive, and its cost advantage outside of spectrum goes away? So cost, quality of experience, general ecosystem, I wonder how the two technologies are comparing, and does Wi-Fi get less relevant as LTE develops? Perhaps start with Claus.
Yeah, let me just comment on the issue with LTE and Wi-Fi, where there's been some news stories out that the Wi-Fi usage is declining in markets where LTE has been launched and so on. I think that's a natural consequence of the early phase of LTE, where the unloaded LTE networks are extremely good. I mean, I've had the similar experience here in Denmark, where I've actually used an LTE router, and in the beginning it was excellent in my own home, and now it's actually bad. So I think initially that's an effect that will happen. I think, however, that eventually as LTE networks load up, you will see the quality start declining, and I think as carrier Wi-Fi, high-quality carrier-grade Wi-Fi networks start to get deployed, you will see that those networks are actually capable of, delivering something very similar to LTE if deployed, professionally and planned professionally, and so on and so forth. So I think the two it's a bit technically it's a bit like comparing apples and oranges in some ways, but I have no doubt that carrier-grade Wi-Fi networks can deliver a fantastically good user experience if you deploy them at the right density, if you manage your environment, if you manage to get exclusivity for venues where you can actually police other rogue Wi-Fi routers and so forth that might be installed, and actually have them removed, for example, if you have exclusivity at the venue. And in that manner, control your Wi-Fi service. I think absolutely you can do that. At least as good, well, certainly as good as LTE.
And Magnus, leading on from that point, I mean, you showed us a deployment that really did look like a carrier deployment, in very, very deep, very dense, lots of back office. But that's presumably an expensive thing to deploy. So I wonder where you see the cost comparisons going with the two technologies.
Yeah, since you are focusing not on a macro coverage, you focusing on a, if you call it micro, and in areas with very high density. You see that I'm covering 14 point some million people with just deploying in 5 malls, 3 small municipalities, and some restaurants. Instead of having to deploy a 4G network for 30 million people on a big country like Peru. So there still is no cost comparison that way. Then the cost of if you call it the small cell and the capacity and everything, I still see, for us, the business model and the business case looks very, very promising. And the other thing is to say, globally, there were 5 billion, with a B, Wi-Fi devices sold last year, and the forecast is that it will double by 2015. And then on top of that, every single LTE device that is being sold has a Wi-Fi in it. So I don't see Wi-Fi going away. I see it as a nice, continue to be a complementary. And even the small cells that are being deployed today, many of them are building Wi-Fi into them. So I don't see Wi-Fi going away at all.
That's great. I'm glad with that, actually, that one question, your detailed answers, both of you, have addressed quite a high proportion of the questions that came in. We are over time, and I know people will have things to go to, so I will call the halt there, but do get in touch with us if you want specific questions that you had answered, or further discussion with any of the speakers or about the services. The details are on the screen still, and you'll be receiving a link to get the slides and further information. Just remains for me to say thank you very much to Claus and Magnus for really interesting presentations. I know we could go on all day, but sadly we have to call a close there. Thank you very much to everybody for attending. I hope you found it valuable, and please attend our next webinar.
Thank you. Thank you all.